So absolutely brilliant. So I didn't really introduce myself, but I'm a background in technology. I was in IBM. I was a lifer. Thought I'd never get out, but managed to get out of IBM, and I work in a startup now. And so I've been around technology in the built environment for a very, very long time. And I have to say, these four talks today have been absolutely amazing, right? So when I was in IBM, the guys would build software, and sure, it would look terrible, right? And they'd say to me, Claire, shut up, like it's nobody cares what it looks like. They just want the information, and it couldn't be further from the truth. It wasn't further from the truth then, and it's not further from the truth now. And so to see what is coming out now from the industry, from people with engineering backgrounds and construction backgrounds to produce software that's easy. I mean, I wrote down here the three main things, right, or four main things were like easy use. Think about the user. Right, number one. Number two, single source of truth, so people are not scratching around for information everywhere. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Integrate with existing technologies where possible, and understand the use cases. And I guess if I want to throw another one in there, it's data is king or queen, depending which side of the house you sit on. Absolutely amazing. So I congratulate you all. Brilliant. I'm so excited about all of this. So does anybody have any questions at all for our esteemed speakers?
I have one question for Corey. The Safe Pass.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that, of integrating that into your platform?
Well, basically, what happens with our system is you get a Safe Pass, you take a photo of it, it pulls out the expired key data. So the system will pull out, it's trained, the use OCR is trained to recognize, it's trained to recognize the data and pull it out. So whether it's Safe Pass, CSS, or whatever, it pulls it out. We see it as there's always going to be physical cards required. Because the alternative is to get all the training providers to shift to a complete digital model, which frankly that will take a while. We see there's always going to be a requirement for physical cards on site of licenses. So we built a solution that makes it doesn't matter what sort of card you're using the card. If there's a date on it, it will pull it out and then just confirm it, so make it sufficient to capture that. So it's kind of agnostic of who the provider is. It's just really
it just seems
the US or
strange. Like at today's age, that solace still you still have to do a full day in a training centre to get your Safe Pass. But it would seem to me that this could be done online.
We were, as in the US last week, we got an electrical contractor using it over there. They said every state has a different license requirement, so they operate across 6 different states. And within each state, different clients will have different they need 10 different electrical licenses just to operate their business. Wow. Which is crazy to think about. I guess the challenge to move, the obvious thing that should be a central database. The UK is pretty good with the CSCS, they've kind of everything pretty central, but there's I think places like the US and Australia, it's much more fragmented. Where there's just too many bodies issued and it's too hard to get them to change the ways, frankly.
I have a question for both Tomas and John, I think, really. In my line of work, it's all about education at this stage, and particularly with the clients. I mean, Tomas, I think you said, like, in your clients, they didn't really know what a master systems integrator was, they didn't know the value. And I think, with your line of work, they're using Revit and applying data into Revit. I'll have to talk to you about that. I wouldn't do that myself, but I think it's a different conversation. But we're finding when we go to the contractors, they kind of get it, understand it, but they're going, what the client says, and it's always defaults to the client. I mean, what can we do you think, as an industry to flip that dial? Is it all about education with the client, or is it about empowering the contractors to go to the client, or is that not the best approach?
Yeah, so education is going to be key. You need to get in, so we said, like, early, you need to get in early to get underneath what it is they want first. Clients need to be educated on what's possible, for starters. This comes right back to whenever BIM really first came on the scene as well. Nobody knew what it was, nobody knew how to implement it and how to take it any further. So, yeah, like I would say, education is a key factor to push that. But not everyone's going to know the one thing either. You know, yes, I know some Revit, I know some data, I can put that together. There's other systems that I've never come across. You know, I'm going to have to learn those to implement them. But there needs to be advice on that as well. There needs to be education on what is just available there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose you mentioned contractors. In Ireland, I think we still follow the very traditional contractor route of, you know, design team, and then you have a construction team appointed. What we're seeing a bit more in the UK, there's more of a shift to design and build, and we're seeing much more engagement with the contractors over there. And we've opened an office in Cambridge now, and actually a lot of the people we've spoken to are the large contractors over there, whereas over here it's very much on the typically we work with the kind of multinationals, so it's they have teams, you know, who want a smart building, and you know they know they want it, but like I recall last week where I went through some of this. It was actually funny. It was a second. We had met this guy several times, and we had met. The team had done a presentation to him about 2 weeks previous, and the word came back that doesn't get it. You know, was expecting something completely different, and then so we had to, because we had assumed the client, you know, that the client had a much deeper understanding of, I suppose, the reasons. So we went kind of very technical on the first stage. So actually, when we met the second time, I did a very similar presentation to this, and then everything started to fall into place for the client. Okay, I get it now. And so there's still a big and pretty big name. And I'm sorry, I'm not doing this justice that they didn't understand, but it's still, when people think of smart buildings, it was a bit like BIM actually. You know, I want a BIM project.
Yeah.
Nobody really knew what it meant, but they wanted it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I think as well, there's always, it's okay having the technology, but I think to what you're doing, you've got to change your business process as well. So it's no point in, you know, having your technology in the office and still passing the paper around. You've got to have that conversation and right, you do not pass the paper around anymore. This is what you use. And it's the same with smart buildings. I mean, Accenture, I'll tell you it was, right? Accenture, smart building, you know, you have to sign an NDA to get in. That's all gone by the wayside now. One of the reasons was a friend of mine was in there and they went, yeah, smart bins, won't use them again. And they were like, oh, why not? I said, well, the cleaner just comes and empties them, regardless. It's like, well, did you tell them not to do that? Did you say, this is now how you do it? When the alarm goes off, then you empty the bin. It's like, I mean, I'm being very facetious there, but do you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to have that conversation as well, the technology and the business side. And are you finding that? Are they adopting the technology as they should, or are they still passing the paper?
We're finding that when we look at the model and the user base, that there is a very specific user, and that is an age profile, and a lot of it is female driven.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when we done a profile of our main users, it was generally females that are driving the digital adoption in their management decisions, and we realised that they're even around about 25 to 40, right? So that means there's a shift. When admin teams come into an office now, they are demanding that we don't do this way.
Brilliant.
And that's been interesting. And we always would have thought that, like, you know, from a marketing perspective, think of the business model, that the business owner would be the decision maker, and we could create content for the business owner and educate the business, talk about education, educate the business owner. And in actual fact, that as we've gone to market and realised, actually, it's the key user here who was driving the decision here, and merely putting demands that we need to fix this, and you know that's been an interesting shift for us.
So, do you mean, Kieran, the people in the accounts department?
The admin team, the
people
accounts
who are
department,
processing the invoices?
The actual users, the people that are in the office are the ones that are coming into these companies and saying, this is broken, this is not helping. I mean, you think about it in 90%, these same employees will go home on Friday night and order pizza off the phone, they'll get a taxi off the phone, and they're coming into an office space that's 20 years behind that technology, right? And it doesn't make sense. So the education is coming from within. We find that when we come along, for example, right, I mentioned 3 accounting packages, 0 QuickBooks and Sage, you are by far the most dominant for a small business based in small to medium-sized construction. They are the champion when it comes to accounts products. And if you think about this in a practical sense. We've gone and invested in one of these products, which are pretty cheap to use, starts with 20 quid a month, right? Phenomenal products, right? Brilliant business models. And we're using this great technology, and then it stops at the project. So our accounts department is sorted out. They've got great technology, and you can plug in little plugins so we can make it a little stack. Cheap, and it's great, and it works. And then we go to the project, and we're back into printing off the paper and spinning them around. So when we find that the education is coming from within, and then they come and find us.
That's amazing.
Are you finding, like in Ireland, like that there's a group of dominant suppliers? I mean, I'm talking about, the Grafton Group, the big concrete companies, the Sarans and Ready Mix. Is that where the blockage is, that they all have their different systems? Or?
Yeah, I mean, from a materials perspective, when we launched Slide Cost initially, we thought we really would have been able to gauge the supply chain and what gets buy-in from the supply chain to make procurement easier, because we thought the supply chain will want to make their process. I mean, do they want every rep taking a phone call and every rep having to process every order? That doesn't make sense, right? So we thought we would have got buy-in from there. And the reality is that when we launched Slide Cost and went to the suppliers, it's too transparent.
Yeah.
It's too transparent,
Yeah.
right? And they don't like the full, they're a bit like, okay, I see the efficiency of it, but I'm not sure I like the full transparency of it, right? So that's where we came back to the invoice.
Yeah.
We'd love to develop an API into all the suppliers and make that so efficient, and wouldn't that be great? And the reality is suppliers don't want that. So that's where we then look back at the invoice, because, you can't deny they've got to send us an invoice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question for you as well, just really on the line, of course. I think it's great. How does that actually, fit in with the program schedule and interim payments? Because obviously the invoices are coming in. Yes, you kind of pay for it, but maybe main contractor schedule certain things to happen at a certain time with clients, and we go to sign off and pay a certain amount at a certain time. So how do your system sort of cope with that? Does it flag that? Does it?
Yes, so we were talking about this earlier on as well. We've had to draw lines in the sand where we said this is as far as we go, because it's if we talk about building a technology platform for a small medium-sized construction company, where do you stop, right? Project management, scheduling, So we just said let's become the best at cost, and we draw a line at cost. We can also integrate a scheduling tool if you want us to, but we draw the line at cost, right? So we track the cost at the invoice, and we can help the application, we can get involved in the application. When it comes to getting involved, we actually tying into the schedule and stuff like that, we just don't, right? We just don't do that as a core feature. And it's because we've had to draw boundaries around where we stop and where we're going. So our take on this and our vision for this is just become the world's best at cost, and focus on that, and then we'll tie in and integrate with the other stuff as we go.
I actually do believe I've just heard that from a CEO and founder of a startup. It's brilliant. Not chasing the shiny next thing. It's brilliant.
That's the key.
Yeah, open APIs.
Things, whatever, any companies use them, and they can integrate them, make that very useful in their own platforms, and that's
Yeah.
I think also if you try and do too much, it's wrong. Like you're going to miss out. Like there's enough problems out there that need to be solved, and there's different types of users. So we also have people that, can we link this to this and the other? But we're Carol focusing cost, we're focusing the safety problem. And other issues, if you put too much functionality in your app, you actually make it harder for the end user to use. So there's that balance too between where you just cram everything into it. At some point, you actually make it more difficult for an end user to use, and then it detracts away from it as well.
Yeah. But I think it's the message that Tomas has as well. If you start listening to the people, if you make it human-centric, that information and that feedback will come to you. If there's functionality that people actually want, they will let you know.
Exactly.
100% they'll let you know. You know what we're all like. We'll have a good grumble. So, they will let you know.
We find two things. When we're talking to a customer, sometimes in the office, say, can we listen to that? But when you actually see the users and just listen to them after the users, that's a better time to get feedback. Because they have sometimes something in their mind, we should do this, that. But when you actually watch them, people using or listen to these people, you get a much better information.
Yeah, so, and also on education as well, in my past, the people I wanted to target, and I think this is for you too, I got a lot of resistance because they're very risk averse. So facility managers, real estate managers, very, very risk averse. I mean, and quite rightly too, downtime for them is a bad time for them, like really bad. So are you seeing much pushback? You know, you may have like in multinational style, it's like the workplace person who might be a woman who's like, yeah, let's go and do this. And then when you filter down and you get to the FM, the guy and the girl who's actually going to manage the site, it's like, whoa, like, stop. You know.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like it really is. And the other thing is this disconnect between, like, you've workplace, you've facility management, and then you have HR.
Oh, yeah.
And they all kind of go, they all should, like, there's a Venn diagram there where they all should talk to each other in the middle. They don't. And actually, we wrote, what's the page we got? Over the prop tech thing
Yeah.
in London there the other day. And we were discussing this. It's not done. Like, it's particularly with HR, whatever about workplace and FM. And then you have the workplace manager, exactly that, like, be really excited, well, we want to create a better workplace. But facilities, I suppose they're focused on, certainly at a local level, so if you're going to the facility manager of that building, they're only focused on that building.
Yeah.
And as you say, the risk averse, they need it to work, they want to sleep tonight. And, you know, they come in early in the morning and make sure everything's just right. You know, that's the way they operate. It's so we've definitely seen that where you have to, like, when you're dealing with the big global players, and we all know them. You have to get to a much higher level than the local, because they'll get it because they're going to be bidding for that tender, you know, in the next 5 years when it comes around. So really getting to them, I think, is key. And there's fabulous people there, but that's not to say that you have to get to the senior people, but you need to get to the people who's I suppose would be rewarded on winning the next job, if you know, and not just maintaining that building.
You'll always have your resistors, your
Yeah.
passive and your active, but then you'll have your champions as well.
Yeah.
No, you know, we talked a lot last week in Athlone about the BIM gathering, obviously, but there really seems to be a disconnect between construction and property. Construction tech, property tech. It's what I see, a huge chasm there. You never mentioned BIM once.
Yeah.
You talked about your foundation layer. Now, theoretically, that should be the building information model. You know, because we've gone to the trouble of designing it and constructing it. We've all this data that we could use for FM.
Yeah.
But you didn't talk about that.
Well, I'd argue that's data that may live in the data layer. Do you know what I mean? So we're talking about the foundations, then you have the data that comes in there. So the BIM data may form part of the data that lives in that, you know. So when we look at, you know, when Claire talked about digital twins, and we're all plugging into the same data layer. So the BIM model will live in there somewhere. It'll be referenced back from the digital twin, or we have 2D mapping in our scenario. But it's all, it still forms part of that data layer.
Yeah.
But I suppose certainly, I suppose the point I was trying to get across is, don't think of one particular use case and build your whole data layer around that. Think holistically what might actually need to connect to that data layer. BIM will be going.
But actually, that was a big message last week as well. Keep it simple. You know, the simpler it is, the more specialised it is, the more practical you're going to get. So
There's another key point to that as well, is that if you think about the SME and you think about digital adoption, this whole series is called Digital Acceleration. We've got a situation, we've done it just in this room, right, where we've pitched an event here to SMEs and got straight in to talk about BIM and talking about acceleration. And if you go and speak to 100 SMEs about BIM, they don't care.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
don't
no,
care.
not at all.
There's no value, right? They can't see the value. And unless that changes, we're going to have a separation in the industry where the top tier is going to put on it, and the majority of the guys that are actually building these buildings, putting the wall, putting the paint in the wall, the actual specialist subcontractors who are not tied into this or don't have an incentive to be
but they
tied
won't
into
get
this.
work unless they do this.
You go,
But it's actually more than that, Kieran, because, like, and I see it in our own place. Like, it's much harder to design something in 2D. Like, you have to, like, and I'm talking about 3D models now rather than necessarily BIM as a whole. But I mean, but I see it in our own place where, you know, somebody go in, they're designing a HVAC system for, you know, a relatively small space like this, and they'll draw it. And then they have to draw the plan, you have a reflected ceiling plan, you have an elevation, you have a section. Whereas you draw that once in a model, and they're all done. But there's this kind of barrier to entry that, like, I don't know who's
back to the school.
But if you think of Revit, I don't know if you've played with Revit, like, it's not, anyone who can use CAD can use Revit, it's not rocket science. But there's some kind of resistance to it that I can't, it's like a fear. That's, but you're absolutely right.
One of the, I can only speak from our customer type that we talk on a day-to-day basis, which a lot of them are building the houses here, right?
Yeah.
Probably the biggest problem we have in this country is not building houses quick enough, right? What could help that? Technology. Right?
Yeah.
And every event we go to, every construction technology event we talk about, the high level, right? The BIM, we talk about, you know, structuring models and digital twins. It's just not relevant to one of the biggest problems we have in the industry today, which is actually building houses. And I think unless we get the whole industry involved, that's when I think we'll see, you know, acceleration across industry as a whole. I just don't think there's enough incentive there at the moment for those real contractors on the ground that are solving the problems to be incentivized at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
So, unless
got
there are
there.
questions, yeah, we could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
The next event is on the 21st of October. It is the details to be announced, i.e. location, but it's focused on innovation, procurement and modern methods of construction. So there we go. 21st of October.
Very good.
But that was
We
brilliant.
finished
Thank
November then looking at the whole end user client,
Yeah.
digital twins, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's been really helpful. A bit of a stop start today, but I think the traffic did affect some people, so really appreciate you
Yeah.
coming along.
Thank you. Yeah.
And,
Enjoyed it. Thanks, Bill.
best of luck with
Very much.
the business. Yeah.